All right, there are several reports tonight that increased the number of people who attended the meeting that Donald Trump Jr. had with this Russian lawyer in 2016, including a Russia lobbyist. And by the way, some outlets are reporting the man has ties to Russian intelligence, although he denies it. Now, this comes as The Hill is breaking another major story tonight about who Donald Trump Jr. met with and how they're tied to the Democrats. That's right, the Democrats. According to The Hill, this Russian lobbying effort has ties to 3 Russian businessmen, and the lobbying team included a former Democratic congressman and a former government official. Now, the report also details how these pro-Russian lobbyists, including one of the people who met with Donald Trump Jr., also tried to meet with Democrat and Republican members of Congress. So in other words, a lot of people involved in this. And we're also learning tonight that back in March, Senator Chuck Grassley, he published a complaint where he detailed how a Russian lobbyist in this story worked with that group we've been telling you about, Fusion GPS. Remember, they published the fake document about President Trump, and that goes to the Ritz-Carlton, and that goes to hookers. Remember all that? But they were there to lobby Congress on one that matters. There's also new information on how several Obama administration agencies allowed this Russian lawyer to enter the U.S. back in 2015 and stay until through her June 9th meeting with Donald Trump Jr. So it sounds like John Kerry, Loretta Lynch, and Jay Johnson all have a lot of explaining to do tonight. Because after all, if this Russian lawyer was such a threat, like the left and the media is claiming, well then, why was she allowed into the country? Why did she get a special waiver and allowed to stay? Once again, as we begin to peel back the layers of this onion and learn more and more about truth and facts, this is now boomeranging back onto the Democratic Party. Revelation about the Clintons, their financial ties to Russia, and more potential evidence of a major pay-to-play scheme with millions of dollars. Now, in a WikiLeaks email allegedly from the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta, his inbox, a staffer actually bragged about stopping a story that tied Clinton to the Magnitsky Act, and it reads in part, quote, "With the help of the research team, we killed a Bloomberg story trying to link Hillary Rodham Clinton's opposition to the Magnitsky Act and the bill to a $500,000 speech that William Jefferson Clinton gave in Moscow." By the way, double his normal speaking fee. Now, the campaign was able to kill that story, but the Wall Street Journal reported that back in 2010, while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and opposed this particular act, well, quote, Bill Clinton participated in a question and answer session at a Renaissance Capital Investors Conference where he was paid $500,000. And after the appearance, Mr. Clinton received a personal thank you call. From who? Vladimir Putin, then the Russian Prime Minister. The government news agency TASS reported that. And in that same article, a Clinton spokesman, well, did push back against that connection. But this isn't the only evidence of pay-to-play and wrongdoing from the Clintons that they have gotten a pass on. We're going to expose that in a second. But first, the Democrats, the Destroy Trump media, have for months breathlessly, hysterically been feigning moral outrage and pushing those black helicopter tinfoil hat conspiracy theories about collusion, when in fact they now are the ones. They have been colluding the entire time, all in an effort to damage, to delegitimize, and ultimately overturn an election of you, the American people, and destroy the president. Let's go back to the campaign. Remember WikiLeaks? They exposed this unholy alliance between the Clinton campaign and the press. There was a highly orchestrated plot between the Clinton campaign, the media. Why? They wanted Hillary elected. Now, the evidence is overwhelming. It's incontrovertible, including, remember CNN? Oh, yes, fake news. Well, remember they gave the Clinton team debate questions ahead of time. And by the way, does anyone ever remember that poor Bernie Sanders was railroaded and the fix was in and it was a rigged primary? Now, by the way, this is why that Clinton was given a free pass by the media despite a mountain of evidence of felonies, crimes, wrongdoing, inexcusable behavior. And it's why now the media refuses to even cover massive scandals that you, the American people, need to know about. They don't care to search for answers. They're not looking for the truth. They have political, ideological interests. And, of course, that's advancing that radical all-left-wing agenda and, of course, hurting President Trump. Now, just take a look at this disgusting display from Democrats. This is just earlier today. Some of them, and they've been doing this since November 9th, talking about the president and impeachment. Watch this.
So many of us are attempting in every way that we possibly can to unveil the criminal activity, the unconstitutional activity of this president and his family. So I have dubbed them the criminal clan a long time ago.
I've always been reluctant because I think impeachment is something that really has an impact on the country. So when the facts are clear, the law is certainly clear. When the facts are clear, then this Congress will make a decision.
Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Democrats, once again, calling for impeachment, it doesn't matter what does or doesn't happen. This has been their goal for a very long time. All these cries, impeachment, impeachment, all the hysteria, all the conspiracy theories, it's really about distracting you, the American people, from real scandals that they're not reporting on, that we're investigating. And of course, we will continue to investigate. We will continue to expose them because you deserve answers, the truth, and people need to be held responsible for their actions. For example, back in January, we've been telling you, Politico uncovered a massive, huge scandal, much bigger than Trump-Russia. Here's the headline. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump. Oh, a foreign government backfire. Kiev officials scrambling to make amends with the president-elect after quietly working to boost Clinton. Now, that story, as we've been telling you, it details how a DNC paid operative, Alexandra Chalupa, she literally spearheaded a plan along with the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian ambassador, to hurt Donald Trump's campaign and boost Hillary Clinton. And Politico highlights in the piece how Chalupa once worked for the Clinton White House, worked to try to expose former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and they were successful, including meeting with the Ukrainian diplomats in the Ukrainian embassy. And Chalupa said that those Ukrainian diplomats were helpful when it came to finding information. They were researching it, disseminating that information. And the bombshell quote about Chalupa, well, she shared her findings with officials from the DNC and Clinton's campaign. Oh, that's called collusion. But Chalupa's efforts didn't end there. Remember, she also said that she would help, quote, a lot of journalists, their willing accomplices in the media in writing stories about Manafort to try to hurt the Trump campaign. Now, we've reached out again to Chalupa. We haven't heard back. Shocking. Now, as we said last night on the program, she needs to be called in by the Republicans. They have the power to do this. Put her under oath. Make her testify to Congress. What did she know? When did she know it? How did she get this information? Who did she share the information with? And Congress also needs to hear from the Ukrainian ambassador she was meeting. Remember, they sat down in the embassy, and we can't stop there. The ENC, they were briefed. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she needs to be put under oath and tell you, the American people, what she knows about this scandal. And on top of that, if they brief the campaign, which the report says they did, all right, bring in John Podesta. Put him under oath. He needs to testify about the information Chalupa passed on to the campaign. Robbie Mook as well. Now, this is a major scandal, but only the tip of the iceberg of what needs to be investigated. We still have the Russian dossier. Remember Christopher Steele? That's the former intelligence agent, Great Britain. He wrote that fake news dossier about Donald Trump, and by the way, paid for some of the information. It cited Russian sources, and then the group connected to Hillary, that's Fusion GPS. Remember, they were sending it around, and the Democrats, they were using that phony information to attack then candidate, now President Trump. They all need to be brought before Congress under oath and answer questions. Then, of course, we got the former FBI director, Comey. He wanted to pay this guy $50 grand, and his removal of government information from the FBI, leaking it to the New York Times, and helping to get his friend to be a special counsel. Let's put him under oath in this. Now, the special counsel ended up becoming Comey's buddy, Robert Mueller. Oh, okay. Then he hires Hillary Clinton's attorney. We've been saying this over and over again. It is now time to start investigating the investigator, but in mainstream media. Now, Mueller may be actually breaking out the law by carrying out this investigation when it's James Comey, his BFF, is the key witness. And Mueller's hiring, let's see, members to his team donating thousands and thousands to Obama and Clinton. Take a look at the graphic. His investigators have donated tens and tens of thousands of dollars to the likes of Hillary and Obama. And what's even worse is one of the lawyers of Mueller's team, well, he was working for Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. And we've also learned that the former Obama Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, influenced the investigation into the email server scandal, pressuring James Comey to call it a matter instead of an investigation. Then, of course, the 40-minute tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton. When are we going to put these people under oath? It's got to happen sooner than later. And by the way, go to all of this. It includes, reopening. This is the most important part. If we're going to have equal justice under the law, reopen Hillary Clinton's email investigation. Since we know, well, that in that particular case, Lynch influenced that investigation. Only a matter? Not really. There's also Hillary breaking the law, having secret, top secret, special access program, classified information on her server. That's mishandling by definition. And then destroying some. Then the corrupt Uranium One deal. Remember, she was serving as Secretary of State, approved the transfer of up to 20%. America's uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons. A real Russian conspiracy. That goes to Vladimir Putin. That goes to the Russians. And people involved in that deal kicked back as much as $145 million into the Clinton Foundation. That's called bribery where I grew up. And while Bill Clinton doubled his speaking fees in Moscow. Nobody else is telling you this. It's outrageous, the double standard. It is beyond anything I've seen in my lifetime. Joining us now, former governor of New Hampshire, John Sununu, also lawyer, Fox News anchor, Greg Jarrett. And on the phone is the president's attorney. He's also the chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow. We'll get to him in a second. John Sununu, welcome to the program. You've been around politics a long... What's that?
Happy Friday.
Happy Investigative Friday. Thank you. You've been around this business a long time. Right. You're one of the smartest people I know. You ever see anything like this, a double standard as bad as this?
No, you're right on it being a double standard, but I think we just have to keep at it. A couple of the points that you brought up, I think, are even more serious than you made them. The Ukrainian folks are puppets of Putin. They provided opposition research, and therefore they provided a campaign contribution. And so the Clintons were guilty of not reporting that campaign contribution. This is, if they want to play this game, we have to be specific, we have to be sharp, we have to be focused, and we have to point these things out. I'm not a lawyer. You got two other lawyers on with me. I'm sure they can tell you how serious that is. The other point that I think is... Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go, sir. I would never interrupt Governor Sununu. That could be I've watched you on Crossfire. Go ahead.
The other thing that is important to understand here is that there is also the Uranium One situation, I think, has not been investigated properly. And Juster's contribution of $100 million to the Clinton Foundation should explain how clearly beneficial that Uranium One deal was to him and to the Russians. And so if you want to point to the Russians, there's two examples where I think there's illegality.
Okay. Now, I agree with you. I think that's very well said. Jay, let me go to you. Let's separate facts from fiction here. Governor Sununu's right. In the Ukrainian deal, there was a meeting in the embassy with the ambassador. Information was exchanged. It was passed on to the Hillary campaign. Okay, that didn't happen that anybody knows of with Trump and Russia. Then you have Fusion GPS and their ties to Hillary Clinton's campaign, this phony dossier, information coming from Russia. So separate fact from fiction for us here.
Yeah, well, the first fact from fiction is, what was the purpose of the meeting in Russia, according to the people from Russia that were engaged as part of the lawyer that was there? What was the purpose of the meeting actually, when it actually took place? Was information about the Majinsky Act, which was an entire lobbying activity that had been taking place. They went right from meeting with Donald Trump
But the
Jr.
email suggested otherwise.
Sure. The email suggested otherwise. They thought they had opposition research. And it's, opposition research, guess what? That's part of political campaigns. But what happened here, and this is what's important, what actually happened, this was part of a much larger, basically a lobbying campaign on the whole issue of the Magnitsky Act, which is the sanctions on human rights violations with Russia. And that is what this was about at the end of the day. So the difference between, of course, what happened in the situation where the Ukrainians have delivered.
All right. So break it up a little bit. Let me go to Greg Jarrett. So if you look at Trump-Russia as one issue, Greg, and you look at issue number 2, Ukrainian ambassador paid DNC staffer passing on information, right. And you look at a third issue, Fusion GPS getting information from Russia, and again, who's funding them is also tight with Clinton. Of the 3, which is the worst? And then you add Uranium One to the mix.
Oh, well, Uranium One by far, because it's a crime to use your public office to confer a benefit to a foreign government in exchange for money. That's called public corruption. It's called bribery. That's a real emoluments violation. The meeting with Donald Trump Jr., my goodness, Vladimir Putin, former KGB, could have sat in on that meeting and it wouldn't be a crime. The Constitution gives us the freedom to freely associate with anybody, including Russians, and the freedom to exchange ideas and information from any source, including Russians. But there's this myth somehow that every Russian is the boogeyman, and if you dare talk with one of them, it's a heinous crime. The fact is there are no crimes here.
Well,
there's no
Democrats
treason.
Tonight we're talking to them left and right and getting information from them.
Right. There's no treason, as all of these Democratic lawmakers, including Pelosi, seem to imply, because we're not at war with Russia. It's not conspiracy to defraud the government, because there's no deceit here. It's certainly not collusion, because that's only antitrust law. And finally, it is not, as Pelosi said, a violation of election laws, because the law specifically allows foreign nationals to volunteer information and their personal services. The law says that is not a foreign donation. But the media never asks the tough questions here.
Governor, welcome back. Greg, as always, thank you. We lost Jay Sekulow. Thank you, Jay. And when we come back on this busy breaking Friday news night, Larry Elder, Ari Fleischer will respond to tonight's opening monologue and the left's Russia obsession, their double standard. And later, the original insurgent himself, Patrick J. Buchanan, is here. And also tonight.
You are now in national ratings, behind Nick at Night, which is at 11.
You used that line on Monday, and you know, it was sort of mildly amusing on Monday.
Gets
but
4 million viewers. You barely scratched 800,000.
50-year-old Yogi Bear reruns and 25-year-old Full House reruns do beat CNN. Anyway, Dr. Gorka talks about his beatdown of CNN later.
Frankly, when I was campaign manager in those last several months, when I needed negative information about Hillary Clinton, I didn't have to go very far. I looked at Hillary Clinton. She was a treasure trove. She was like a treasure box of negative Hillary information with arms and legs.
All right, that was Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. That was earlier today on Fox and Friends. Joining us now with reaction, Salem radio nationally syndicated host Larry Elder, former White House press secretary, Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer. Ari, I guess from a PR standpoint, I can sit here all day and I can point out the duplicity, the double standards. There's not equal application of standards as it relates to Ukraine and a DNC operative who's being paid by the DNC, passing on information in the Clinton campaign, meeting in the Ukrainian embassy. I could talk about Fusion GPS and where their money comes and their connection to some of these same Russians. But the media won't even touch it. Why?
Well, Sean, I concede everything you said is true. And I've also said, and I've said it for decades, that it's so much easier to be a Democrat talking to the media than it is a Republican, because the Democrats and the media see things very much the same way. And in this case, they all hate Donald Trump, or for the most part, they hate Trump.
Yeah, they're sheep.
Having said that, Sean, I still have to say that it was a mistake. And Donald Trump Jr. almost said this himself on your show, to get that email and hold the meeting. When you get an email from a foreign government, particularly the Russian government, saying that they have dirt on your opponent and they want to have a meeting, and it's sponsored by the government, this meeting, you don't take the meeting. I think Donald Trump Jr. would have been so much stronger if he had just said on your show, the critics are right, I shouldn't have had the meeting.
Okay, but he kind of said, in retrospect, and again, the circumstances were different. You've been in the middle of campaigns. You know the flurry of emails and texts and meetings and everything's going at a rapid pace. And I guess the only thing I would say in their defense is, you know, if you have a DNC staff member that's paid, that's passing on information after meeting at the Ukrainian embassy, and dirt is disseminated by the Ukrainians in that particular case against Trump, that's far worse than anything that Donald Trump Jr. or anybody in the Trump campaign up to this point that we know about ever did. And I guess to me, it's just beyond, you know, you accept the double standard. I'm not willing to accept it.
I think the other thing that's important that needs to be said here is we still to this date have seen zero evidence that anybody from the Trump campaign was involved in the fundamental issue here, which was the Russian hacking of the Democratic National Committee and Podesta's emails and the dissemination of them. The two are unrelated, and the entire controversy really does hinge on the latter, not the former. The former of the meeting was a bad judgment. It should not have happened. But the crime, which it would be a crime in my book, for anybody to cooperate with stealing emails, an attack on one political party should be an attack on all political parties. There still is no evidence anybody from Trump world was involved there.
None whatsoever. And Julian Assange, I think I'm one of a few people only in the country that's interviewed him and talked to him and had him on radio and TV at least 5 times. And he vehemently denies that it was any state or the Russians in particular. Larry Elder, both about the double standard. I think Democrats have gone so much further on this. There's zero coverage of that. What do you think?
Well, I'd also say this, in addition to the double standard, one of the reasons that people don't like to go into politics is because politics is not beanbag. It is rough, it is tough, it is tumble. And I find it very difficult to believe that if the circumstances were reversed, the Clintons would not have taken this meeting. I've got dirt on my opponent, dirt that may hurt my opponent's campaign in a very tough campaign.
But the Ukrainian ambassador was working with the DNC.
I find it flabbergasting to hear all of this holier than thou from people saying, I wouldn't have taken that meeting. Are you kidding me? The Clintons would not have taken that meeting, given their track record of shenanigans, personal, ethical, and sexual transgressions, starting from the most recent ones, the Clinton server, the Espionage Act likely violations, the various stories they gave us about Benghazi.
Really
give me a break.
All right, let me ask this then. All right, maybe Ari is right, and I'll give Larry first crack at this. Maybe Ari's right. There's a double standard, and it's really flagrant. But there shouldn't be a two-tier justice system. There needs to be equal justice under the law. So if Mueller's going to investigate all this regarding Donald Trump Jr. and committees are going to bring them in, shouldn't we bring in Podesta and Robbie Mook and Hillary Clinton? Doesn't the Uranium One deal now come back into play, Larry? Don't all those people need to be put under oath? The justice system should be separate from politics, right?
I couldn't agree with you more, but you heard that old line in Washington, D.C., if you want a friend, get a dog. The unfortunate thing is there is a double standard. Republicans are treated differently. Barbara Boxer once said it's very difficult for any Republican to win because she believes that the media are against us. And that's the case. So we're going to have to deal with it.
Thank you guys both for being with us. Appreciate it. Up next, Patrick J. Buchanan is here to respond to all this hysteria and also tonight.
In the last 9 months, you and your colleagues in the fake news media, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post. I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish. You and your colleagues in the fake news media, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post. I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish.
Dr. Gorga's takedown of the mainstream media. He is here to respond. He'll join us later tonight as we continue on this busy Friday breaking news night.